Okay, so we'd like to start by setting the scene with the idea, which is perhaps a bit arrogant, but not totally unreasonable, that was raised this morning, that we should really be setting the table, not asking for a place at it. So research and insight departments should be a foundational pillar in any large organization. Not something that gets cut as soon as budgets get squeezed, but something that's really integral to any decision-making. People should be knocking down our doors when they have any questions, and we should have all the answers. Maybe not on the spot necessarily, but we should be able to source them. So this is where we want to be in this expertly photoshopped and not plagiarized comic book strip. This is where we want to be on the left. People really interested in what we have to say, super excited for our reports, for anything we have to provide them. But the picture on the right is sometimes where we might be. A little bit ignored, not really getting heard by the right people at the right times. So why would executives ignore things we have to say or not factor in research when they're making kind of million-dollar decisions? And they can be million-dollar decisions when we're talking about really large advertising budgets. Well, we'd like to argue that it's partly because they can't digest what we're telling them. So we need to break down our communication and change the industry through the way we communicate. Now, this isn't a really revolutionary idea or something that we're going to try and claim credit for, but what we're going to talk about today is how we've successfully applied this thinking within Delta Airlines. So today we're going to talk about snackable reports, what we call snackable reports, what they are, why we think they're great, how to create them, and the potential impact that we feel they could have on the industry.
So one of the biggest problems we face today is that people are just way too busy. I'm sure that does not come as a surprise to anyone in this room. It's true for both us as the researchers as well as the customers who are splitting their attention between cell phones, laptops, social media, commuting, et cetera. There's just not enough time in the day. In fact, there's a stat that says C-level executives in some industries only spend 26 minutes a week in front of their computer screens in their office. 26 minutes a week for them to look through our reports, to get their insights, and that's just not going to happen in their current form unless it's very straightforward and to the point.
So something that really resonated with us in relation to this topic is practice what you preach. We want to generate amazing experiences with our clients as we're telling them they should do with their customers. Especially at Mesh, we're the experience agency. We're all about understanding experiences, collecting them, helping our clients craft really positive ones with their consumers. So we want to make sure that we, in turn, are crafting magical, effortless experiences with our clients and other collaborators to really make this work.
So like I mentioned, everyone's super busy, and this is supposed to, oh, it does say unlocking. Sorry, never mind. We have a different screen down here. But I see my coworkers eating their lunches at their desk. I get emails from them at all hours of the day and night. Half of the emails say sent from my iPhone, which we'll get into a little bit later. But they don't want to read a 100-page report I send them. I don't want to read a 100-page report that someone sends me. I want something quick, easy to digest, and snackable that will easily tell me what I need to know and what I need to do with it. So to that point, we need to be sure that the insights that we're sharing are in this short, concise format.
So this is ultimately the action that we took, taking this huge meal and turning it into something short, sharp, shareable, tiny bite-sized reports that people can manage. So the snackables that we create are usually 1 or 2 pages. They're very visually appealing, and ultimately, they're really easy to interpret, so people can unlock that value in them. Now, we found this really, really useful both internally to help us refine our recommendations, because we have to go through this really hard process of condensing all the information, and both externally in the value that we're able to provide for our clients.
So this is an example of a pre-report and a snackable report. And what Delta and Mesh have been able to do is Mesh will put together this kind of longer, it's still medium length, it's by no means a 100-page report that we've seen in the past, but a kind of medium length report detailing their findings. Then we'll talk through it together and talk about, okay, well, what is the main finding? What's going to be the most useful, and for who is this going to be the most useful for? And then we tailor it into this shorter, snackable report that you see, 2 to 3 pages at most, a summary, some visuals. Depending on the audience, it will differ, but really short and concise. And I mentioned before that most of the emails, or at least a lot of them after hours, sent are from people's iPhones or other smartphone. These reports I've gotten from Mesh, and I can open up on my phone, scroll through, digest them easily, and I know in a couple of minutes what they're trying to say, what I need to do, and that if I share them, people will instantly understand the impact that we're trying to get across. So how do you create these snackable reports? Well, it's 3 things.
So the first thing is trust. So before you even start on something like this, you've got to make sure that there's a really strong layer of trust there between you and whoever your audience is. So if you're really, really cutting something down into a sentence or 2 sentences or even just 1 page, they've got to be reassured that you have gone through this whole rigorous process in analyzing and kind of churning around the data in order to come out with this 1 summarized claim, because it can be very easy to dismiss something when it's so small.
Number 2 is translate. So know who your audience is and speak to them. When I first started at Delta, I got a packet of 50-plus acronyms that I was expected to memorize, and now they are a typical part of my everyday conversations. So Mesh is able to use those acronyms as well so that the client understands what we're talking about in our language. This also applies to the different departments that we're doing research for. So if we're doing something for a marketing executive, he is a total visual person. If it's not in the right font, he will call that out instead of focusing on the insight. If it's not perfectly visualized. So for him, visualization is key. If we're reporting to someone in finance, for example, they don't care about the visuals, they care about the data, they want to see the hard numbers. So it's really important to tailor the snackable depending on who you're talking to so that it has the most relevance and impact on their everyday day.
Number 3, okay, template. So think about what format you want your snackable to take. Unfortunately for all the futuristic people out there, the PowerPoint format that Caroline showed you earlier is one that we use frequently with Delta. And this is really, really useful, holds the most value for Delta specifically, super easy to share, to forward, to read on an iPhone, to edit, to repurpose, to take certain chunks out and put them in something else. So ultimately, that kind of form of snackable is going to spread far and wide within an organization like Delta. Other things we found work really well is perhaps printing out large foam boards or posters and putting them up in offices so people can refer to them frequently. Even videos, short videos work quite nicely. Or maybe you don't want something tangible at all, and this again ties into translating into the right language. If people are very visual, maybe they want some images, maybe just a couple of anecdotes or kind of qualitative pieces of information would really resonate with them.
So I know Kat talked about at Delta we primarily use PowerPoint, but this is an example of an Excel snackable that they delivered to us. This was an interactive preference calculator, so we shared this with the marketing team. They could put in their budget that they want to spend and see what the impact on preference is. Preference is one of the main KPIs that we track. So it was a really engaging, short, simple tool that allowed them to just with the click of a button see what impact they would get with their investments, and it got a lot of traction.
So hopefully we've given you some ideas there in how we've used this kind of thinking within Delta. Ultimately, we feel that changing the way we communicate will firstly change industry perceptions and get rid of the...
Sorry.
Change outdated industry perceptions and get rid of the death by chart stigma that we hear about a lot. Secondly, we feel that it will attract young people to the industry if we're changing the way we communicate. Now, this is something that gets brought up a lot as a challenge. It's definitely something I've heard at every single conference I've been to. So we feel that this will go some way towards helping with that. Thirdly, will help to raise the profile of marketing within large organizations from the perceived extra value that these type of deliverables will provide. But ultimately, it's also going to refine the quality of the deliverables by focusing on the quality over the quantity. This is something, again, that was brought up a lot this morning, that people don't want to be paying for hands that are doing things. They want to be paying for minds that are thinking about things. So through distilling all the work and all the charts and numbers and data into something very concise, condensed, coherent, is a really difficult process to go through, but that's what you want to be getting from your agencies and your research collaborators, really. So if we go through that difficult process, we should start to see a rise in the quality of the deliverables that we're providing.
So we hope that we have convinced you that snackable reporting is the way to go. If you're not already doing it in the next big report deliverable that you do, just condensing it into these 3 pages and sharing that up front rather than the full report. Happy snacking.
Thank you.
Fantastic, and a perfectly delivered snackable presentation. It's great. Less than 10 minutes, that, which gives, that's good because it allows us all to catch up on our time a little bit. So any questions? One here at the front.
Thank you. I just wanted to find out, you said if you're talking to accountants or to financial people, you're going to have charts and tables. If you're talking to marketing, you're going to have more imagery-driven kind of snackable kind of content. How do you get those requests, and how do you actually make sure that it's a piece of information that has to be reported on both ends, that both entities will get exactly the same version of the truth without having to infer something's not matching?
It's a good question. And a lot of how we decide what should go into the snackable is an iterative process. We work with them up front to define the research objectives so we know exactly what they want out of it. And the report is usually primarily delivered for one audience, and then we'll share it occasionally if we think it's relevant for someone else in its current form. And if they want more data, for example, if it was a marketing project that we share with some data guys, then we can usually append that in the appendix, and that gets them kind of both the data and the visuals that they would be looking for.
I'd say as well, it can be really helpful to ask people directly that, you know, your ultimate end audience, ask them so that they have some personal involvement in how it's being shaped, because they'll buy into it.
I have a question over here. Can you give a specific example? This sounds really amazing, and I'm sure it's actually a lot of hard work it's harder work to do a short presentation or a short report than even a longer one. Can you give an example, a specific one of one that you delivered recently?
Yeah, do you want to
Without the data, of course, but just the topic and how it came together.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can talk about the preference calculator, which was a snackable in Excel format. And that came about through speaking to the marketing guys and the analytics guys. And we delivered a long kind of PowerPoint presentation, well, semi-long PowerPoint presentation. And they said, okay, but we really want to get at kind of what this means for our preference score. And we really want to understand how this is impacted by numbers. And we want the media agency to kind of be involved in this. So can we speak their language too? So it kind of went from there, and it went through several iterations. And they kept asking questions, and we kept coming back. And ultimately, and then they kept asking questions such as, well, is this affected by competitor spend, or can we add in this, can we add in that? And the preference calculator, which was just that one sheet, kind of factored everything into that, because you could choose the level of competitor spend, your base level of spend, your campaign timing. So they were asking how long the campaign timing should be, how quickly the kind of impact decayed, things like that. So all those questions they had that came out of a PowerPoint deliverable kind of got condensed and rolled up into that Excel.
Another kind of basic example, our brand health tracker used to be huge and like a monster that no one wanted to read. It's 4 pages now for any given market, which is how we deliver it. So we kind of worked together with the team and with Mesh, pulled out the key indicators that we want in that report, and have just eliminated the other ones. We track them ongoing, so if someone has a question, we go to them, but on a monthly basis, we only share these 4 pages of key information.
Oh, I have a question. Does the move to the snackable reporting mean that you are not as often meeting with your stakeholders and sharing results in person, or how does that relationship work now?
No, we still share in person, I'd say the same amount as before, but now we can put more content. So, for example, Mesh is working on a broad, in-depth analysis of kind of various touch points. So instead of having like 5 huge decks that we meet 5 different times, we're consolidating that into one, like a bit longer meeting to cover more content, but it's going to be more useful. So I guess it does cut down, instead of 5 hours, it's 1 hour, but it's just more useful for the end audience.
Great, thank you.